I stood at the entrance of the banquet hall wearing my white wedding dress. My heart was beating fast with happiness. I was ready to walk down the aisle and marry the love of my life. But then I froze. My eyes found my parents sitting at a table with my sister. They were laughing and whispering like I was not even there. The caterer came to me quietly and said something that broke my heart into pieces. My parents had refused to come to my wedding. They had told everyone at the venue that they would not be attending. A text message from my father kept playing in my mind like a sad song. "We didn't change our plans for you." I held my bouquet tightly as I felt everyone's eyes looking at me. The whispers from other guests felt like sharp knives. Nobody knew that my parents had abandoned me on this important day. The person I was supposed to marry was waiting for me, but my heart was not complete. My parents were supposed to be proud of me, but instead they were punishing me for choosing my wedding date over my sister's wants. The betrayal was not just about their absence. It was public, humiliating, and very intentional. I left the reception early that night. My husband held my hand, but my mind was somewhere else. I went home and locked myself in my bedroom. I cried until I had no tears left. The next morning, I started a new notebook. I wrote down every detail I could remember. Every time my parents had favored my sister. Every birthday when my achievements were ignored. Every family event where my sister got all the attention. I made lists and timelines. Then I found something very important. My wedding planner had sent me a note explaining that my parents had called her many times. They had tried to change my plans and complain about my choices. They had wanted to sabotage my wedding from the very beginning. I realized something cold and clear. This was not an accident. This was planned. My hands shook as I understood the truth. My own parents and sister had conspired against me on the most important day of my life. I started very carefully. I called my cousin for dinner and asked her innocent questions about family events. She told me stories that showed a pattern of favoritism toward my sister. My sister had gotten advantages that I never received. My parents had helped her in ways they had never helped me. I went back through every email and text message I had ever received from my family. I looked at every wedding invitation and response. I created a complete timeline on my bedroom wall. Everything fit together like a puzzle. My parents and sister had worked together to ruin my wedding day. Then I found the most important piece of evidence. I discovered a voicemail from my mother. In this message, she was talking to my sister about plans to disrupt my wedding. They had spoken about which guests to convince not to come. They had discussed how to embarrass me in front of everyone I loved. This was not just favoritism. This was organized cruelty. My voice grew quiet as I listened to the voicemail again and again. My mother's words were clear and deliberate. She had planned this sabotage with intention and care. Over the next few weeks, I collected everything. I saved every text, every email, every message. I talked to friends who had been pressured not to attend my wedding. They confirmed my suspicions. My sister had contacted them before my wedding day. She had told them not to come. She had made threats. I also reached out to relatives who had noticed the unfair treatment over the years. They were shocked when I told them everything. They shared their own stories of watching my parents favor my sister repeatedly. Some of them admitted they had been too afraid to say anything before now. But I was not afraid anymore. I was building something stronger than fear. I was building the truth. Each piece of evidence I gathered made me stronger. Each story I heard from relatives confirmed what I already knew. The picture was becoming clear and complete. I started paying close attention to how my family members acted when they thought I was not watching. I noticed that my parents made mistakes when they tried to explain their actions. Their stories did not match up. My sister's lies were easy to catch. I practiced staying calm when they made hurtful comments. I trained myself to smile while I listened to their words. Inside, I was recording everything. I was noting every contradiction. I was finding every weakness in their story. I realized something important. They believed I was still the person they could control. They did not know I had changed. They did not understand that I was now 3 steps ahead of them. I spent hours in front of the mirror practicing my calm expression. I needed to be perfect. I needed to give them no hint of what I knew. I studied the family calendar carefully. I looked at upcoming events and holidays. I thought about which moments would be best to reveal the truth. I needed to choose a time when many family members would be together. I needed a moment when the evidence would matter the most. Then I made my next move. I invited my parents to a small family dinner. I told them it was about reconciliation. I said I wanted to fix our relationship. They came happily, not knowing what was coming. My sister came too, her confidence shining like a bright light. She had no idea what I had prepared. At dinner, I asked them calmly why they had not come to my wedding. I watched their faces very carefully. My sister tried to laugh it off and say it was not important, but I saw her jaw tighten. I saw her eyes move away from mine. My parents made excuses. They said they had other plans. They said it was not their fault. But their lies were easy to see now because I had all the evidence. I remained completely calm. I did not raise my voice. I did not show anger. I simply asked questions and listened to their answers. Every word they said was another proof that they were guilty. My mother became nervous and started talking too much. My father became defensive and made more mistakes. My sister tried to change the subject, but I kept asking simple, direct questions. I reached out to relatives I trusted. Some of them had heard things about the favoritism for years. They admitted my sister had bragged about manipulating my wedding plans. One cousin told me my sister had kept a secret list of every decision I made about my wedding and reported everything to my parents. This confirmed my biggest suspicion. The sabotage had been very organized and intentional. I started having quiet conversations with family members. I did not accuse anyone. I simply listened and asked questions. Many of them had noticed the unfair treatment, but had stayed silent out of fear. By the end of this process, I had support from 6 different family members. They all had stories to tell. They all had memories of seeing my sister get special treatment while my achievements were ignored or criticized. I organized a family gathering at a neutral location. I hired a family mediator to help us talk. I told my parents it was for reconciliation. They came expecting to have an easy conversation. I was very prepared. I had organized all my evidence in clear folders. I had written down dates, times, and exact words that had been spoken. I had the names of people who could confirm my story. When we sat down, I presented everything calmly and clearly. I did not yell. I did not cry. I simply showed the facts. I showed the timeline. I showed the messages. I showed the proof that my parents and sister had deliberately tried to ruin my wedding. My parents' faces turned red. They tried to deny it at first, but the evidence was too strong. The mediator could see that everything I said was true. I had invited several family members to the meeting. When I presented my evidence, I also gave them copies. I let them read the messages and look at the timeline. I let them hear the voicemail from my mother. As they saw the proof, they began to understand the truth. My sister tried to deny everything, but her own words, recorded in messages and emails, proved she was lying. She had actually written messages bragging about how she had manipulated guests and convinced them not to attend my wedding. My parents could not explain themselves. They could not justify what they had done. They tried to blame me for being selfish about my wedding date. But the mediator pointed out that my wedding date was reasonable and normal. There was no real conflict. My parents had simply chosen to punish me and favor my sister. The room became very quiet. Everyone could see that my family had been cruel and dishonest. Within the next week, the word spread through my entire extended family. Relatives called me to say they believed me. They expressed anger at my parents and sister for their treatment of me. They apologized for not standing up for me sooner. My parents faced real consequences. Family members stopped inviting them to events. Some relatives told them they could not be trusted. My parents' reputation within the family was damaged. They had built an image of being devoted to their children, but now everyone knew it was false. They had only been devoted to my sister. My sister lost friends when people found out what she had done. She had bragged about her cruelty in messages, and now those messages were known by everyone. People looked at her differently. She could no longer pretend to be innocent. She tried to defend herself by saying I had made everything up. But the evidence was real and clear. Everyone had seen the messages. Everyone had heard the voicemail. Everyone knew the truth. I did not feel happy about their pain, but I did feel peaceful. The truth had been proven. I had used patience, calmness, and facts instead of anger and revenge. I slept better that week than I had in months. The weight I had been carrying for years began to lift from my shoulders. I started spending more time with family members who had supported me. We built new relationships based on honesty and fairness. My parents and sister eventually tried to apologize, but by then, so much damage had been done. Many family members would not forgive them. I did not hate my parents or sister, but I did not trust them anymore. I kept my distance and did not let them get close to me emotionally. Looking back on this painful experience, I learned several important things. First, I learned that truth is more powerful than revenge. I did not need to yell at anyone or hurt anyone to win. I only needed to show the facts. Second, I learned that patience pays off. I could have confronted my family immediately after my wedding, but by waiting and gathering evidence, I made my case so strong that no one could deny it. Third, I learned that calmness is a weapon. When I stayed calm and did not show anger, people listened to me more carefully. They could see that I was telling the truth because I was not emotional. I was rational. Finally, I learned that I did not need my parents' love or approval to be happy. I had a husband who loved me. I had friends who supported me. I had family members who believed in me. That was enough. My wedding day was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, it became the saddest. But from that sadness came strength. From that betrayal came clarity. From that pain came justice. I did not get revenge in the traditional sense. I did not hurt anyone or damage anyone intentionally. But I did get justice. The truth came out. My family saw what my parents and sister had really done. And my parents and sister had to face the consequences of their own actions. In the end, I won not because I fought harder or yelled louder. I won because I was patient. I was smart. I was calm. I was truthful. And sometimes that is the best kind of revenge. Not revenge at all, but simply justice. Simply truth. Simply freedom from people who never deserved to control me. I am happy now. I have learned to trust my own judgment. I have learned to stand up for myself. And I have learned that the best way to overcome cruelty is not with more cruelty, but with honesty and strength. My story is not about hate. It is about survival. It is about learning who really loves you and who only pretended. It is about finding power in truth and peace in honesty. And that, I believe, is the greatest victory of all. Every time I think about my wedding day now, the pain has become smaller. The betrayal still matters, but it does not control me anymore. I have taken back my power. I have told my truth. And I have moved forward into a life that is free and full of genuine love from people who truly deserve to be in it. This is my story. This is my victory. And this is my peace.